And what story was
Yeah, who is this? Team's employee says original.
that?
On the 12th, we received a video depicting Johnny Depp slamming some cabinets that was captured by Ms. Heard.
38 months already.
And what day was that?
I believe that was the August 12th
Of 2016?
of 2016, yes.
Can you describe to the jury how you received the video on August 12, 2016?
Yes, the video was sent in through our email tip line, which is an email distribution that goes to all the producers and to myself.
Yeah. I'm gonna say this at a time. With the way I feel like he's his like nonverbal, the way he's moving his mouth and shit like that, I feel like he's here to like slay.
The field.
Not like slay, but you know, like almost like he's making fun of somebody almost. Does that make sense? No.
Assignment manager because it often included celebrity locations. It came in.
How do I say this?
As I recall,
Objection, hearsay.
He's just describing how it came in.
I think he's about to reveal hearsay.
He has a very strong
For
nonverbal.
now, we'll see where it goes. Okay.
Please continue.
So I received that email and it included a link from some unknown Dropbox type website in which it contained that
Objection,
video.
Your Honor, hearsay. He's about to describe what comes from the Dropbox website, and that's.
So far, he's just said he's was a link from a Dropbox. We'll see the next question. Go ahead, next question.
So you received a link. What was in that link?
In that link was the video of Johnny Depp smashing the cabinets.
And
Okay.
you received this video in your inbox, correct?
I did.
What did you do once you received that video?
He posted that shit.
We downloaded it. We alerted the web editor who was sitting next to me at the time. We downloaded it and then were instructed by the news producer to do what we call slap bumpers and a bug on it, which is putting the dun 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 at the beginning end, and then putting a translucent watermark over it, which indicates copyright ownership.
This guy, dude.
After you did that, was it posted?
It was posted, yes.
Where was it posted?
It was posted to tmz.com.
Did you do anything else
He
related
speaks
to
Zeus a
Amber
little
Heard
bit.
on August 12, 2016?
Yes, I received a tip that Amber Heard would be arriving at LAX, and so I dispatched camera people to film that exit, or her arrival to LAX, rather.
And why did you do that?
I was instructed to.
Wait, what?
How long does it take to post a story after
They
media
posted
has
this
been
up.
received by TMZ?
After media has been received, it could take any length of time depending on who owns the copyright.
How does TMZ obtain copyright over images and videos?
They slapped the fucking thing
The
on
only way
it.
to obtain copyright over media would be if we shot it ourselves, if it was sent to the tip line, source verified that it was from the original copyright owner, and then either purchased from that person or given to us. And then the third option would be if it was directly given to us.
I feel like most of the time TMZ doesn't give a fuck. I think most of the time TMZ, if they want to get a fucking clickbait in or some juice in, dude, it's like post now, ask questions later.
By the copyright holder, like a direct source.
And how long does it take to copyright something TMZ
Not
has
true.
received through the tip line?
It can take a while because you have to extensively verify that that person owns the copyright. And then possibly, it depends also if you can even get in contact with the person because they might not be super responsive immediately via phone or email that they provided. And then potentially you'd have to enter a negotiation with our clips and clearances department to figure out the cost of that media.
Oh my god, it's like
How long does it take for
an eclair.
TMZ to obtain a copyright over something received directly from a source?
Something in the realm of 15 minutes just to do what I described before, which is putting bumpers and a bug on something and write the article and post it. It's pretty fast.
How much time had passed from the time you received the kitchen cabinet video to the time it was posted on TMZ?
About 15 minutes.
Holy shit. They didn't want to. They didn't want anybody to
Did
be
any
into
other
the buzzer.
tabloids other than TMZ post this video?
Objection,
No,
leading and calls for hearsay.
Did
I mean-
any other tabloids?
Overrule.
I mean, it's useless to.
Tremaine, go ahead.
No, they did not.
And why not?
Because it was a TMZ exclusive.
And what does that mean?
It means the TMZ owns the copyright to it.
Interesting.
So it can't be distributed by any other media source without backlinking to TMZ, and they wouldn't be able to upload that media without getting a copyright strike.
Have you seen the kitchen cabinet video that was played in this trial?
I have, yes.
How does that video that was played in this trial compare to the one you received on August 12, 2016?
When I had clicked the direct link that we received and watched the video in its entirety, it was much shorter than the video we had received, than the video that's been played in this trial. There was a bit at the beginning that was played here in which Ms. Heard is seemingly sort of setting up the camera and getting into position. And then there's a bit at the end where she's seemingly snickering and looks at the camera. That part was not present in what we received.
Did TMZ edit the video?
No, not even a little. When
Wait,
we
what?
receive something and it's edited, there's a clear indicator because there's sort of a journalistic practice they use is when there's an edit, you do what's called like a white flash transition, which covers the entire screen with white to very clearly indicate to everybody there was an edit here for time or whatever, just to make it a little more compelling. But in this case, it was not edited, as I was staring at the machine that edited it and present for the entirety of receipt to publishing.
When was the next time you worked on an assignment related to Amber Heard?
All the
It
time?
was, well, there was the time where we went to the airport. And then the day after that, because she had flown in for the deposition, because I think the first time didn't work out. So she was arriving again for the deposition in that same parking lot adjacent to a law office.
And what's that, August 13th, 2016?
That was August 13th, yeah.
And what was your assignment on August 13th, 2016?
To dispatch camera people to that parking lot at a specific time in order to film Amber Heard arriving for the deposition.
How did you know that tip was legitimate?
It came from a news producer.
While you worked at TMZ, did you ever receive any communications from Mr. Depp or his camp?
I did not.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Cross-examination?
Yes.
At the airport,
So-
chat. What do you do at the airport? Do they like ambush them and they ask them what's at the airport? They're like, hey, mister, we heard you put a poo-poo on the bed. What do you think about that? And they do that?
How do you know what video was shown at this trial?
I was alerted by a friend that that TMZ was being kind of talked about in this trial, and so I had seen a clip of that.
So you watched some of this trial?
Correct.
Okay. When did you first reach out to counsel for Mr. Depp?
I believe that was 6 days ago, whatever that date would be. I'd have to do that.
All right. And then you received a subpoena, I think yesterday, in care of your attorney, Cindy Hickox, right?
Correct.
Okay. And Cindy Hickox represents Christy Dombrowski, Kate James, Robin Baum. and
Objection,
Debbie
Your Honor.
Lloyd. Were you aware
Calls
of
for
that?
speculation.
Overruled.
Were you aware of that?
No.
Okay. Now, if you don't have information that's helpful to this case, then you wouldn't be a witness, correct?
Objection. Calls for
can't-
speculation.
Sustained. Sustained. Next question.
I'm not
Right.
aware.
Okay. You know this case is being televised, right?
I am aware that there are cameras.
And so this gets you your 15 minutes of fame, doesn't
Objection, Your Honor. Argumentative.
it? I can ask that question.
Overruled.
What?
So I stand to gain nothing from this. I'm actually putting myself kind of in the target of TMZ, a very litigious organization, and I'm not seeking any 15 minutes here. Though you're welcome to speculate. I could say the same thing by taking Amber Heard as a client for you.
A little argumentative, don't you think?
Oh, hardly. I find that to be purely logical. Thank you.
Now, are you aware that Mr. Depp's attorneys
Jesus.
were well aware of the
What am
TRO
I doing
that was
with
going
my
to
life
be
aware?
presented on
Wait, the administrators they're on the clock. Literally, they're back against the ropes, aren't they? They're literally, and they waste their time with this shit.
May 27th?
Objection. Calls for speculation.
Were you aware of that?
Lack of foundation.
Overruled if you can answer it.
Can you restate the question?
Were you aware that Mr. Depp's divorce attorneys were aware that Amber Heard was
now we're
going in to seek a TRO on May 27th?
I don't think I understand the question. I don't think so, no.
Okay.
kind of a
Do you
complicated
know whether Blair Burke, one of Mr. Depp's divorce attorneys had a very close relationship with TMZ at that time?
Objection calls for speculation.
Overruled. If he knows.
I was not aware of that.
Okay, and when you said that you were dispatched twice, once to film Amber for...
Wait, guys. At this point, guys, who doesn't have a close relationship with TMZ? Isn't TMZ? Aren't they like a little bit like rats? They're like everywhere. They have people everywhere, all around the place.
A lot for the deposition, and then it didn't work out, and so you had to do it another time. How did you know it didn't work out?
Because TMZ.com posted an article saying as much.
Okay.
And I was not dispatched.
Do you know
I worked in the
why the deposition did not work out?
I'd have to reference the article, I forget.
So do you know...
I didn't write that story. I wasn't involved in the actual
Do you know
journalism of that.
which side? Do you know which side would have known or not known whether that deposition was going to work out? In other words, the people representing Mr. Depp or the people representing Ms. Heard?
I wouldn't know.
Okay. And then the video clip. You don't know who provided that, correct?
Correct. Not testifying to that.
All right, redirect.
Yes, I feel like shit like for like branches or questions, right? If he says this, oh, we're gonna get him there, get him this, and he's just like, what? And then she just has nothing.
Mr. Tremaine, why did you contact me in relation to this case?
I saw that there was a discrepancy with like the video that was shown here and the video that I know I had received. So I had no interest in testifying. I had reached out simply to maybe try to help with the timeline of things or help with the case in any way, just by virtue of understanding the timeline of the stories that were published and kind of how that can be unclear.
So what you're saying, what he's implying is that Amber's side sent it, right? And you remove the snarky side to look like, oh, look, he's popping the fuck off and I'm not doing anything. Ah. And when they were asked to give the evidence in the discovery or whatever, they added the whole file. They couldn't edit it. That'd be tampering with evidence. So then they sent the actual footage from the device itself or from recovery, or I guess I would assume from fucking backups.
But I had no idea I'd be on the stand.
Okay, nothing further. Thank you.
All right, sir, you're free to go.
Thank
Thank you. All right. You have another witness? Okay.
Mr. Depp calls Brian Neumeister, Your Honor.
All right, Brian Neumeister.
Interesting.
He has not been sworn.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm to testify truthfully in
I love having with you,
case
but thanks
that
for hanging out with us, son. Okay, let's see. Okay, it starts soon, right? It's probably gonna start slow, right? What are these guys doing anyway? Save a what face? Save a beard. Amber beard. Save a Amber beard. What the fuck does that even mean? What the fuck even is that?
Love xQc.
Save an no, I don't want to save that. Oh. Yeah, if you wanna make a sign, you choose a different fucking font, man. This guy, dude. Guys, this is the type of font that you use for your paper when you make a paper for science in like fucking 4th grade elementary school about volcanoes or tornadoes. Save a lies. Save a life.
Some bots back in 2013 even, you know, celebrity network talks. And
Bro, what is this shit?
Of course, amplifies this Michael Keaton on YouTube and like how it's like social media building company.
What? My man's got the evidence stamped on it. Like, he could like glued it on and shit. Like arts and craps. Jesus. Literally arts and craps Andy. Okay. Thank you, man. Appreciate your thing. I looked at the stats and I mean it checks out. Crazy. It's arts and craps. Watch Neumeister? Who the fuck is oh yeah, Neumeister. Show me. Give me a clippy clip. There it is. Show. Tell if it starts.
Tom, can we pull up Defendant's Exhibit 170A, which has been admitted into evidence? Mr. Neumeister, does this photo appear to be one that you have analyzed as part of your analysis in this case?
There were many versions of this photo. I would say there were dozens of different versions with different chromatic values, different file sizes, different physical sizes. Some had been through Photos 1 or Photos 3, which are photo editing software programs.
Your Honor, at this time, I'd like to show Mr. Neumeister's demonstrative, Plaintiff's Exhibit 1303.
All right, any other objection?
I would object again, Your Honor, because the photograph in 170A is not in evidence.
All right.
Or, yeah, I mean, the photograph is in evidence. None of the photographs he wishes to show the jury are in evidence.
1303 is in evidence over objection. Not in evidence, I'm sorry, as demonstrative.
Just as a demonstrative.
I'm sorry.
Could we go publish in this room, please?
So watch, guys. If you're not in chat, guys, we'll watch most of the stuff that we basically did. We'll watch it during the pause and during the lunch break. Okay, unless things go pop off and go nuts mode.
And Mr. Neumeister, what does this demonstrative show about the photos that you analyzed?
Well, they appear to be similar. However, if you look below at the file sizes, one on the left is 712 kilobytes. The one in the middle is 489 kilobytes. And the one on the right is 524 kilobytes. Now, what's unusual about that is these photos will not digitally fingerprint with each other. They won't hash. In other words, forensically, they don't match. But the thing is, you could say, well, it was sent through email, maybe it's a different size. The file sizes, for example, would be possibly, you could select the file size you send a photo, but there's no way to authenticate any photo that was presented in the way the evidence was collected.
And so what conclusions do you draw from that?
Well, this is just 3 of many of the same type of photos that are all different sizes and have different chromatic, which means color.
Objection, Your Honor. We just had a ruling on this.
All right, sustained objection.
Mr. Neumeister, stick to your opinions that relate specifically to what you analyzed about the EXIF data, please.
All 3 of these photos had to go through some type of transformation to change sizes.
We can take that one down. You mentioned Photos 1.5 and Photos 3.0 earlier, I believe.
But why?
Photos.
What is that?
Photos 3 and Photos 1.5 are editing programs that.
I don't get it. Technically, they had a good picture that could have been useful, right? And instead, they lose a lot of credit out of it, and they look like a bunch of idiots because they try to doctor it in any way. Even though the picture might have validity and it probably is true and probably it's a real bruise, then they fuck it all up. Why?
Macintosh or Apple put out with their product. It's for editing photos. In other words, you would put a photo in and you would change the colors, or you would crop it, or you would clarify it by enhancing, for example, the sharpening, or you could darken it. But when you save a photo through an editing program, you leave a mark on the EXIF data.
And what is the EXIF data?
The EXIF data is the data that is embedded in a photograph that tells you a lot about the photograph. And again, in the early days when we were using film cameras, you would write down the f-stop, which is the light setting. You would write the type of lens you use, the time of day, the type of film stock, the type of filters you're using. Now with digital cameras...
Fuck!
Good morning, Judy. Good morning. All right.
Good morning,
Do we have
Kanye.
any preliminary matters?
Shut the fuck up.
Okay, sure. If you want to come forward.
We can keep watching.
That's done electronically, and there's about 1,000 lines of code, of which 50 are probably important, that tell you what the camera was doing.
So what's the significance of EXIF data in your photo analysis?
Well, in this situation, I can see that normally where the operating system of the camera would be, which means the version that the operating system the phone is running on, it would normally say something like, I'll just throw out an arbitrary number, 9.1.3 operating system for iOS, which is Apple's iPhone operating system. Instead of saying that, it says software Photos 3.0 or Photos 1.0. That means that the photo had to be rendered, which means composited together in an editing program.
Did you prepare a demonstrative that shows some of your analysis of some of the EXIF data of the photos in this case?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Can we pull up 1304, please? Your Honor, may I approach?
Bruh. Why didn't they just submit the picture from the fucking phone?
Good morning, sir.
Permission to publish as a demonstrative, Your Honor.
I'll do you a clip of Roy if you want.
Any objection, Mr.
I'm sorry,
Murphy?
Your Honor. My
It was just to
co-counsel,
publish
I'm
it
so sorry.
as a demonstrative.
No objections demonstrative.
All right, thank you. We'll publish it as 1304, just as demonstrative.
And Mr. Newmeister, are these images in this demonstrative excerpts from the report you prepared in this case?
Yes, they are.
And what do they show?
On this particular photo, and on all of them, it shows the first few lines of EXIF data, the ones that would be most important for this photograph. So, for example, things you would see, the very top line would be the make of phone. It's an Apple iPhone 6. And then the resolution is 72 pixels per inch, 72 to 1. And instead, where it says software, on a normal iPhone photo, it would, instead of saying Photos 3, it would say the software version, for example, 9.3.1. And then you've got the date and the time of the photo below that, which is really easy to change in an EXIF editor. And below that, you have things like the flash. You've got the exposure type, how long the exposure was. So what you just highlighted there again was the date and time.
Jesus.
So that's universal time code minus whatever area you're in the world.
Anything else you want to show us with this demonstrative?
Yeah, just below that, if you look, there's some things that would say, for example, a directly photographed image. That is not going to be necessarily accurate once it's been through an editor. It will always pretty much say that. So when you're looking at scene type or auto exposure, these are things that...
Merci, Nick.
De l'eau ou Gatorade?
Nick, est-ce que tu dis que tu chètes tout le temps quand tu rentres?
Moi, qu'est-ce que je dis tout le temps?
Nick, tiens, look.
Giga Chad?
Giga Chad. Tu connais Giga Chad?
Non, pas vraiment.
Ouais, tu connais pas Giga Chad?
Non. Yo.
Ouais, c'est Giga Chad.
Yo, I wish je serais rip comme
Je sais pas si c'est là-bas, ils disent tout Nick Giga Chad. Jesus.
Est-ce que tu as une bouteille d'eau, quelque chose?
Non, mon gars, c'est Nick.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. All right, have your seat. All right, your next witness,
We call Dr. Richard Gilbert, Your Honor.
Dr. Gilbert.
Have we seen this guy before or not?
Do you solemnly swear or affirm to testify truthfully in this case under penalty of law?
It is legitimate. Hey, what do I speak? I speak French.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Good morning, Dr. Gilbert.
Good morning.
Would you please state your name for the record?
Richard Stephen Gilbert.
And what is your occupation?
I am an orthopedic surgeon and I have a subspecialty training
Another
in
one.
surgery of the hand and upper extremity.
Dr. Gilbert, where do you work currently?
I currently work in New York and Long Island at Northwell Health.
And you mentioned you have a specialty. Can you tell us a little bit more about what your specialty is?
So after medical school, I trained in orthopedic surgery and I did an orthopedic surgery residency. And for a year thereafter, I did a hand and upper extremity surgery resident fellowship. And so my practice for the past 22 years has been limited to surgery of the hand, wrist, and elbow.
And I think you may have gotten ahead of me there, but how long have you been practicing?
22 years.
Okay.
Pretty good.
What percentage of your practice over the past 22 years has involved surgery?
Approximately 1/3 of my practice.
Okay. And other than that 1/3 that involves surgery, what does the rest of your practice entail?
The rest of my practice entails some academic work, but mostly seeing patients in the office, seeing them either pre or post-operatively. A large portion of hand surgeons treat patients non-operatively.
In terms of the surgeries that you do, can you describe for us the types of surgeries that you will perform?
So again, I limit my practice to hand, wrist, and elbow. I would say approximately 75% or so of my practice is limited to the hand itself. And this really varies from anything from conditions like carpal tunnel syndrome to tendinitis to injuries such as amputations, fractures, sharp lacerations, etc.
Over the course of your 22 years of practice, how many surgeries would you estimate you've performed?
I perform about 300 to 400 surgeries a year, so a
Wait,
rough
holy-
estimate would be approximately 10,000, maybe a little less.
Holy shit!
Where are you currently licensed?
In New York.
And how long have you been licensed in New York?
I have been licensed in New York since 1994.
Roger that.
So that would be 28 years.
And do you have any certifications?
Yes.
Board.
And can you tell us about those?
I am board certified by the American Board of Orthopedic Surgery, and I have a certificate of added qualifications in surgery of the hand from the American Society for Surgery of the Hand.
When did you receive your board certification?
2002.
And can you describe for us what current positions you hold?
I am currently an assistant professor of orthopedic surgery at Northwell Health, and I'm also the president-elect of the New York Society for Surgery of the Hand.
President.
In what professional organizations are you a member?
I'm a member of multiple orthopedic organizations, including the American Board of Orthopedic Surgery, the American Association of Orthopedic Surgery, and the American Society for Surgery of the Hand, as well as the New York Society for Surgery of the Hand.
Have you published any articles in your field?
Yes, I have.
Have you testified as an expert before?
Yes, I have.
Can you ballpark for us how many times?
Certainly less than 10 over the past 22 years.
Wait, that's it?
Your Honor, at this time, we'd like to offer Dr. Gilbert as an expert in the field of orthopedic surgery, specializing in the hand.
All right, any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
So moved.
Because it's a lot. No, not really. I would
Dr.
expect.
Gilbert,
I'll take about it later. It's
what
irrelevant.
work were you asked to do in connection with this case?
So I was asked to review medical records, radiographs, pictures, as well as testimonies and depositions related to Mr. Depp's finger injury.
Okay. And to your understanding, what is Mr. Depp's explanation of how his finger was injured?
He describes that he was in Australia and his right hand was over the side of a bar when a vodka bottle was thrown at his hand, injuring his right middle finger. And he describes that the vodka bottle exploded.
You want some?
Are you aware of other explanations for that injury?
There have been multiple other explanations, but I think the one that was brought out was by Ms. Hurd, who believed that Mr. Depp was holding a landline and out of anger was punching it against the wall, and this resulted in his right middle finger injury.
Based on your review of the medical records and other documents in connection with Mr. Depp's finger injury, how would you describe the nature of the injury to Mr. Depp's finger?
Well, the nature of the injury was he had what we describe as a comminuted fracture of the distal phalanx, meaning there was a fracture of the tip of the finger, and comminuted meaning that there were multiple pieces. So this is some type of blunt force with a high mechanism of injury. He also sustained loss of the tissue along what's called the ulnar side of the finger towards the little finger. And this appeared, based upon my review of the pictures, to be some type of sharp laceration because it represented a clean edges of the wound.
Do I concur? I concur.
Can you take a look at Plaintiff's Exhibit 60?
He has my blessing for now.
And pull up to go to page 3. And Dr. Gilbert, are you familiar with this document?
Yes.
And what is it?
Show me.
So these are two radiographs, x-rays of Mr. Depp's finger, his middle finger.
Okay. Sorry, just to stop you, but Your Honor, may we publish this to the jury as a demonstrative?
Any objection?
You saying it's not clean? You don't get it.
We'll identify it as 60, page 3, and
I think what they mean by clean, it has it nice
Dr. Gilbert,
lines,
sorry
right?
to cut you off there. Can you just tell a jury?
Jagged.
what we're looking at here.
You get actual
two X-rays
cuts.
of Mr. Depp's right middle finger after the injury, and towards the tip of the finger, there's a fracture. Again, what I described as a comminuted fracture, meaning there are multiple pieces at the tip. There's also a transverse component to the fracture closer to the joint.
Interesting. I concur.
In your view, what types of mechanisms can cause this sort of injury?
So this is a mechanism of injury that has high velocity or force, generally a crush-type injury. A simple fall would not result in a comminuted fracture such as is seen in these X-rays.
And we're using the term comminuted fracture. Can we just define that quickly for us?
So again, comminuted, and it's not particular to a finger, is a medical term for a fracture that has multiple fragments.
Well, like an explosion.
In your opinion, could this injury have been sustained in the manner Mr. Depp described?
I do believe so.
And how might that work? How might a thrown vodka bottle produce an injury like this?
So vodka bottle, which is a hard object, would have crushed the tip of the finger, resulting in the comminuted fracture. And in addition, as the vodka bottle broke, the glass would have lacerated the finger, resulting in the soft tissue loss that was also seen with this injury.
Wouldn't the bottle break first, though?
What's your assessment of the description of the cause of the injury offered by Ms. Heard?
I think that's highly unlikely.
And why is that?
Because in general, when an injury is caused by punching against a wall or a hard object, it is extremely rare to see an injury to the tips of the fingers, which is seen with Mr. Depp's injury. Generally, you're holding something with a fist, and that in general leads to injuries most commonly of the knuckles here, or fractures of the metacarpals. We call these boxer fractures. Second most common after those would be injuries to these, but as you can see, if you're holding something and hitting against something, it is very unlikely that the tips of the fingers will be injured. In addition, just taking into account the radiographs and the pictures of the injury, I would not believe that solely a blunt force against a wall would result in the soft tissue loss.
I concur.
What other injuries, if any, would you expect to see on Mr. Depp's hand if the injury had occurred as Ms. Heard described?
So if that were the cause of the injury, you would certainly, that would be a dorsally directed, so this is the dorsal in the back of the hand as opposed to the palmar side. So if you're punching against something, you would certainly expect an injury to the nail bed, and those are always seen in those type of injuries. If there is an injury to the tip of the finger, which again I said is rare. So you would see either a loss of the nail or blood underneath the nail called a subungual hematoma.
Oh, I knew this already.
In your review of the medical records, did you see any sign of anything like that?
None whatsoever.
In your view, is the injury... Can you explain to us exactly why you think the injury is consistent with Mr. Depp's description?
Well, again, his hand, he describes his hand being held over a marble bar, which is a firm, something firm, unyielding, and the bottle hit against the finger. So basically the finger was crushed, resulting in, again, what I described as a comminuted fracture.
Oh.
And as Mr. Depp described, the bottle exploded. So it's certainly reasonable that the glass that exploded as well led to the soft tissue loss along the ulnar aspect of his finger.
That makes a lot more sense than last time that I heard it.
Now, did you observe the testimony
he said it very well.
of Dr. Richard Moore?
Yes, I did.
And he testified about Mr. Depp's finger injury as well?
Correct.
Right. Did you agree with Dr. Moore's testimony?
Certain parts of his testimony I did, yes, but not all of it.
Focusing on the parts that you... Well, first of all, why don't you tell us what you agree on?
Well, I agreed in terms of his interpretation of the X-rays, saying that he had a comminuted fracture and this was some type of high force injury.
Okay. What did you disagree with?
Well, I disagreed with several things that he said. He first said that he does not believe that the mechanism of injury could be, as described by Mr. Depp, holding the hand on the side of a marble bar, because he said it was all a palmar injury, and there was a palmar component to the injury. I'm talking about the soft tissue loss, but there was also a dorsal, meaning the back of the finger. So the soft tissue loss was actually, if you looked at the pictures which were shown when Dr. Moore testified, the injury goes like this. So it's an angled or an oblique type injury. And there's no way that anybody could determine whether or not it was a palmar directive force, meaning from the palm side, or dorsally directive force. But certainly either are plausible.
Guys, because palm side would have been protected or shielded
Anything else
by the marble disc or the marble countertop.
Well, he also described that this was definite. Well, he thought that this was a pinching or what he described as an avulsion type injury, and that's referring to the soft tissue loss. That's certainly possible, but if you look at the pictures that were shown when he testified, the laceration looked fairly clean. There were clean edges, it was not jagged, and generally when you have an avulsion or a pinch type injury, you see a very irregular border to the skin. It's pinched off, you can imagine, as opposed to something that's cleaner that would be lacerated by, let's just say, a piece of glass or a knife or whatever. And that's more consistent with the pictures of Mr. Depp's injury.
And we're using the term soft tissue loss, and just to make sure we're on the same page, can you just tell us very quickly what you're referring to there?
Right, so there were two components to this injury. One, the fracture of the bone, and two, he had loss of the soft tissues so that the bone was exposed. So that amputated part that was found at the bar.
Now, you were saying that Dr. Moore testified that this was an avulsion, and meaning a pinching injury, right?
Correct.
Why do you believe it's more likely that it was a laceration?
Well, again, in general, a pinch-type injury results in, one, much more damage to the remaining tissue, but the remaining tissue is usually very irregular. The borders are jagged, and that's not what was depicted in the pictures.
Wouldn't you have,
Dr. Moore also testified that he thought a vodka bottle might not have sufficient force.
Wouldn't you have vascularization around?
Is that your understanding of his testimony?
Correct.
If it's a pinch?
What's your response to that?
I certainly believe that a vodka bottle that was thrown from a distance against a hand was resting on a marble bar is more than sufficient force to result in this fracture and soft tissue loss.
Now, in looking at the medical records and the pictures of Mr. Depp's hand,
Let me stop trying. It's true. I
what
pin
was
this all
the
the time.
condition of his nail?
Bitch ass.
There was no injury to the nail.
And other than what you've already told us, how does that factor into your analysis, if at all? The fact that there was no injury to the nail?
Well, it makes it highly unlikely that the mechanism of injury described by Ms. Heard resulted in this injury, because you really would always see an injury to the nail and or nail bed.
Do you have any opinion regarding the direction of the injury?
Yeah, Bitcoin's down 1.5K, it's fine.
It's certainly based upon the soft tissue loss. It's an angled injury, or what we call medically an oblique injury, because the soft tissue loss is at an angle. He lost some of the tissue on the back of the finger as well as the palm side, primarily along the palm side. But other than that, you can't make any assumptions. Unless you saw a videotape of this injury, nobody could tell you definitively what the direction of the injury was.
Dr. Moore also commented on the absence of fragments of broken glass in Mr. Depp's injury. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
And how does the absence of glass fragments factor into your analysis?
It really doesn't. I've seen hundreds, if not probably at least 500 or more glass injuries, and I would say probably the majority you don't see glass in these injuries. It is much more common to see glass embedded in the wounds when you're talking about very fine glass. So if, just say a wine glass would explode or something of that nature where you get little tiny shards. But in general, when you have thick glass, such as you see in a bottle or a pane of glass,
this is what I said that last night also.
Because they break into bigger pieces, and you generally don't see the glass, but you certainly can, but it's not surprising that you don't.
The shards are negligible in big breaks.
Can you state how this injury occurred?
No, nobody can definitively state.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
All right, cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Dr. Gilbert.
Good morning.
Now, you're being paid $1,000 an hour for your work on this case, correct?
Correct.
And you agree, just to sum up how Mr. Moniz finished, you agree that the finger injury could have been caused by any number of things, right?
Yes.
And you're not offering an expert opinion on what you believe caused the finger injury, correct?
Correct.
And you're aware, you said a few times Miss Heard's account or Miss Heard's explanation, right? You remember saying that?
Yes.
You're actually aware that Amber has said she doesn't know how he lost his finger. You're aware of that, right?
Wait, what?
Yes.
So when you were just talking about Miss Heard's account or Miss Heard's explanation, you're aware she's never actually given an explanation for how she thinks he lost his finger, correct?
No.
Yes. You're aware that Miss Heard testified, and this was from your deposition, you're aware that she testified she doesn't know how he got his fingertip chopped off.
See, I'm
You're aware of that, right?
Asked and answered, Your Honor.
Overruled.
No, I'm not. I reviewed the records, and in one of the testimonies depositions that I reviewed, it was described that that potentially it was lost when he was punching against the wall with a phone.
And on that, the last point there, I think we agree. Miss Heard's testified in this trial and previously that she saw him smash a phone to smithereens, a wall phone. You'd agree with that, correct?
Correct.
But she doesn't know if that was what caused him to lose his finger. You agree with that, correct?
Oh, wait, how would that cut it so cleanly like that, though?
I agree. I cannot speak for her, but
Yo, X,
okay.
Can you see if I'm banned? I can see the
May I
chat,
approach, Your Honor?
but
Yes,
says me
sir.
error to load something and can't type.
You're just bugged. Just you're fine. Refresh or remove your VPN. Okay. What I asked the chat is whenever you squeeze.
Dr. Gilbert, you gave a deposition in this case on March 17th, correct?
correct.
You were under oath in that deposition. You swore to tell the truth, correct?
Correct.
Okay, if you could turn to page 61, please.
Whenever you squeeze in
four
there really hard.
pages per page of paper.
Even something rips or something, it snaps, whatever, right?
It's on page 16 of the document.
It's an understanding.
Okay, in line 9, you're asked a question, and then Amber's response to that question, that's the line 9. Can you read that, please? Answer, I do not know. I did not see his finger go off. Question, and Dr. Gilbert, are you aware that Amber did not see Mr. Depp's finger go off? Answer, I mean, I'm aware that, well, I am from reading this. I'm aware of the mechanism that she claimed would cause the finger injury. Question, but have you read anything so far that indicates she doesn't know how the finger injury happened? Answer, so far from what I'm reading here, yes. Did I read that right?
Yes.
And you've heard no testimony in this trial from Ms. Heard that the finger injury was definitively caused by the phone, that she doesn't know, correct?
Correct.
And you'd agree that the fingernail was uninjured. You said that, right?
Correct.
And the nail bed was uninjured.
Correct.
Correct. But the area under the fingernail, in the pulp of the finger, that's where the injury took place, right?
It was not isolated to the pulp, no.
But it didn't injure the fingernail. That's my
Correct.
question. Okay.
Yes.
And under Mr. Depp's alleged theory, Amber threw a vodka bottle at him from 10 feet away or so, right?
Correct.
And you testified you have no way to determine the angle that the bottle was coming from.
Correct.
Right? But she threw it on a downward trajectory, correct? She didn't, there's no allegation, you've never read anything that she somehow underhanded it so it came up to his finger, right?
Correct.
And there's no way to tell, as you testified, what exact direction it came from, right?
Correct.
What?
And the glass exploded, but you've already testified there was no glass in the wound, right?
Correct.
You haven't read any record of that in any medical records, correct?
In the wound?
You also haven't read anything about there being cuts on the rest of his hand, right?
Correct.
And there was no glass found anywhere on the rest of his hand, correct?
Correct.
No bruising or injury on any other part of his hand other than the tip of his middle finger.
Correct.
And somehow, under Mr. Depp's theory, that bottle hit the bar and his fingers, but didn't damage the fingernail while it amputated the area under the nail.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Correct.
What?
Correct. And your explanation of that is that you believe that his hand must have moved at some point during the force of the injury. Isn't that correct?
No, I said it could have, but I did not say that it did.
No, you believe that it did, don't you?
I said that it likely did, but I was not there, and I don't have videotape of the injury, so I can't determine that definitively.
Okay. Well, let's turn to page 25 of your deposition, please, on page 7.
They're on the clock.
Sorry, page
25 and 26. So it's page 7 of the document.
Okay.
Sorry if I was unclear on that.
No problem.
They have to do a lot of legwork to prove that. I mean,
I'm there.
Okay.
it's more likely that
Line
he did it
18,
himself.
Question, and to be clear, by, quote, sitting in that position, you mean hand down, palmar side down. Answer, that's what he claimed. I mean, according to the history, yes. Question, and would it matter if Mr. Depp's hand was palmar side down? Answer, not really, because it really, and I discussed this, it really just depends upon the angle at which the injury occurred, and as well, you can't determine if his hand had moved at some point during the force of the injury, which I believe it probably did, which I didn't get into in my note here, but question, and why do you believe that? Have you read anything in any of the materials to suggest that? Answer, no. Just that if it completely hit on the back of the finger, then he would have had a nail bed injury, which he did not. Did I read that right?
Correct.
That was testimony you gave under oath a month or two ago, right?
Correct.
So even though you have never read anything that suggests Mr. Depp's hand moved, his hand moving is the only way that you can fit your testimony into what Mr. Depp wants you to testify to about how the injury occurred, isn't it?
No, that's incorrect.
Okay, that's what you testified to, that if his hand hadn't moved, that there would be a nail bed injury, correct?
That is incorrect. That's not what I testified. That's
In fact,
not what
Dr.
He's
Gilbert,
connecting
there's
dots.
another explanation for how Mr. Depp somehow suffered an injury that didn't injure his nail one bit, but injured underneath the nail. And that explanation is that it didn't happen how Mr. Depp says it did, correct?
What?
I cannot make that assumption, nor can you.
No further questions.
Oh,
All right, redirect.
I mean, why?
Dr. Gilbert, just very briefly.
Jesus.
The absence of other cuts
Tell
on
him.
Mr. Depp's hand, how do you factor that into your analysis?
You certainly can see an isolated finger injury with any type of injury, and I would say any other host of mechanism of injuries, you'd more likely see other, so again, if you're, I'm just using this as an example, if you're punching against a wall, you would more likely see multiple injuries to multiple fingers. It really just depends upon how the bottle, or how the mechanism of the injury impacted the hand at that point in time.
Ms. Hurd's counsel made a point of emphasizing that there were no bruises or other injuries on the hand, right?
Correct.
And how does that fact affect your analysis, if at all?
Sorry about the noise.
Well,
I can mute.
It doesn't discount anything, but it certainly makes other potential causes of injury more unlikely, meaning punching against a wall or getting the hand slammed in a door or something like that.
And your discussion of Ms. Heard's explanation of the alternative cause of the injury, was that based on anything other than Ms. Heard's statements?
No.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Doctor, you can have a seat in the courtroom or you're free to go. Thank you.
Guys, am I completely?
You can just leave it there.
Am I
That's
completely
fine.
in the whatever? Am I just wrong? That if you squeeze something, you're gonna get some sort of bruising, or some sort of vascularization, or some sort of discoloration around the wound. Not only a clear cut, instant,
Plaintiff rests
fucking
the rebuttal
pure
case.
rip.
All right.
You're gonna get
Plaintiff's
something.
counterplaintiff rebuttal case? Sure.
I've pinned something really badly, right? Even if you get an injury that's pretty clean around it, you have some really deep red, like exploded vessels, right? That'll be like subdermal, right? Not even speculating. I'm just saying it. I think out of all theories, I think the squeeze doesn't make even the slightest amount of sense. It just doesn't. You're not gonna have a squeeze that's going to literally rip the whole flank, the whole thing, from top to bottom, right? Literally top to bottom. What? What do you want? Oh my, fuck you, man. What is wrong with you, man? Man, what is wrong with you? What is wrong with you, man? Get some help. Get some help. What the fuck is wrong with this chat? Because since we don't know much about the cause of the injury, okay, they're going by what, they're just going by ruling out certain stuff, right? They're ruling it out, but I think that the stuff that they're holding on to, and the theories that the defense is holding on to, just don't make sense. I'm not even being biased about this one, okay? I'm just saying that I think there's a lot of strategies that they try to go for. Right? So that's disproving the main theory, right? But even their theories just don't make sense, right? And listen, obviously these guys are experts, okay? And my anecdotes are kind of like irrelevant, but when you get caught with a bottle, or a bottle explodes and there's big ass shards, yeah, it can happen. In my opinion, what he's trying to say, right? That would have had happened. Excuse the wieners, but it's gonna, right? What he's trying to say is it would have been like this, right? Right? So the bottle would hit from top to bottom, like I said, the angle, top to bottom, at high velocity, going this direction, right? It would crush the bone inside, right? So then you have your little right? So, right? And then the bottle breaks, and the shard would go like this. It'd go, and would like, one of the big ass shards would get indented into the skin or whatever, and would come off with the whatever, right? It could happen. So I think this is a decent visualization of what he's trying to explain. No, he did not say. So no. I'm trying to show the chat something. What the defense was claiming that happened, what the defense claimed was happening, is this. They're saying this scenario is impossible because if it's going from the top, well, how is it hurting the inside of it? It's impossible because it's shielded by the desk, right? The finger's off the table, Come on, at the top, it makes a lot of sense. It does. It literally just does.
All right, rebuttal evidence.